As U.S. Vice President Mike Pence resumes his Middle East trip, we'll be asking what his main agenda will be after President Donald Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. And as the price of cryptocurrencies has plunged on world stock markets, will this have any lasting significance on the future of blockchain technologies? Welcome to The Point. Live from Beijing, I'm Liu Xin. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence is resuming his Middle East trip, which he was forced to postpone last month after President Donald Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. His visit has been billed as supporting the Trump administration's efforts to pursue an so-called ultimate deal to bring about peace in the Middle East. Earlier this month, the U.S. decided to hand over $60 million or half of a planned payment to the UN agency to assist Palestinian refugees known as UNRWA, keeping back $65 million until it carried out so-called reforms. Meanwhile, the relations between the Palestinians and the U.S. seem to be getting worse. Will Vice President Mike Pence be able to smooth over ruffled feelings in the region? Where will the situation lead to? I'm happy to be joined from Tehran by Professor Hamed Mousavi, Professor of Political Science from the University of Tehran. From Boston, Nadim Shehadi, Director of the Fares Center for Eastern Mediterranean Studies at the Fletcher School at Tufts University. And from Washington, D.C., Professor Doga Eralp from the School of International Service at the American University. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Professor Eralp, Mike Pence's trip to the Middle East will cover Egypt, Jordan and Israel. What do you think will be Pence's agenda this time around, and what is he expecting from this trip after President Trump's controversial announcement about Jerusalem?
Well, Vice President Pence's trip to Middle East starting today obviously is aiming to calm the waters after the announcement of the U.S. administration of their decision to move to U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. And obviously, like you did mention, U.S.'s move also to punish the Palestinian administration by holding up $65 million worth of its financial support to UNRWA, which actually is extremely critical for the livelihoods of children, and among them obviously many girls, for them to attend schools, has damaged the U.S. position in the Middle East, so their potential role for a Middle East peace. So what Vice President Pence is trying to do basically is to strengthen its relations with the three critical actors that have very important things to say regarding a possible two-state solutions between Israel and Palestine, Egypt, Jordan and obviously Israel. So he's trying to re-emphasize U.S.'s commitment to peace, but I'm not sure how he's going to be able to do it after that two very critical decisions U.S. administration has made.
Mr. Shehadi, as we heard mentioned, there are three countries that is on Mike Pence's itinerary. Unlike many other Muslim countries, both Egypt and Jordan recognize the existence of Israel as a sovereign state. These two nations also share close ties with the U.S., as Egypt relies on the U.S. forces to fight terrorism, and Jordan is also the recipient of billions of U.S. dollars in aid. So what will happen now? Do you think the two countries would distance themselves from the U.S. position or try to pull Palestinians and the U.S. back to the same table?
Actually, that's a very good question. They will certainly try to, in the first instance, to distance themselves to regain their own credibility, because this has also been harmed by the declaration of the U.S. administration of Jerusalem as the capital, by the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital. But on the other hand, peace in the Middle East now is probably dependent on a much broader set of actors in the Arab world, mainly in the Gulf and in North Africa. Since the Arab Spring, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict has in a way taken, has been set on the back row, and it's not what it used to be when the last round of negotiations happened. So now the atmosphere is very different. There are more Arab countries willing to work on the peace process. The unintended consequence of President Trump's declaration is that it has brought it back to the forefront. So there is a positive aspect to that. So it has revived interest in the conflict.
Professor Mousavi, how do you look at the understanding of President Trump's decision that he has successfully brought the issue back to the forefront of the international attention? Is that going to be conducive to the resumption of peace talks or finding a solution on the issue, which has been, you know, decades elusive to us?
The truth is, this is a diplomatic show. The peace process is essentially dead. The Trump administration, using these kinds of trips, wants to limit essentially the disadvantages that it has brought on itself for recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Like I said, if we look at the peace process started with the Oslo negotiations in 1993. Now, the idea was that the Palestinians would get a state in 22% of historic Palestine in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, with East Jerusalem as their capital, and the remaining 78% would become the State of Israel. Now, after 2.5 decades, we don't have a Palestinian state. At the same time, when the negotiations started in the early 1990s, there was about 100,000 illegal Israeli settlers in the occupied territories. Today we have over 500,000 settlers. So as the so-called negotiations were going on, the Israelis were actually grabbing more land and building essentially more settlers, more settlements. And the United States, even before the Trump administration, has been very supportive of the Israeli cause. Since the early 1970s, they have vetoed 43 UN Security Council resolutions in favor of Israel, and they have given Israel over $130 billion of aid. And as you can imagine, the United States can really not be a fair and honest broker in this conflict. And I mean, the latest development is Donald Trump recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, I think is an official declaration by the United States that even they recognize that the two-state solution and the peace process has died.
Professor Eralp, what is your take? Do you think the United States, having made all these decisions, is still able to broker a fair deal?
Well, obviously, the recent decisions by the Trump administration significantly limits the U.S.'s potential to act as a fair third-party mediator between Israel and Palestine. And, but obviously, we also need to recognize U.S. will continue paying a lip service to their commitment to an eventual two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. But there also is a side agenda to this visit, which basically Egypt and Jordan are really key allies to the U.S. as part of the anti-ISIS coalition, and they are really significant clients for U.S. military industrial complex for their potential purchases of advanced weaponry. And another third agenda for Pence's visit, as you may be aware, Vice President Pence comes from a tradition of evangelical Christianity, and by visiting Israel and visiting the wall in Jerusalem, he also would be able to give a really strong signal back to his domestic constituency here about his commitment to evangelical Christian principles that he upholds so dear in his own political agenda.
Yeah, Mr. Shehadi, let's talk a little bit about the funds cut. As I said, the U.S. decided that it's only giving half of the $125 million US to UNRWA, which was set up to fund to help the Palestinian refugees. And the United States is pressing for some kind of reforms. What do you think the United States is really wanting from the UNRWA? Do they really want reforms, or is it really cutting funding to gain or to punish the Palestinians or to achieve some other gains?
Yes, this is a very old story between the United States and UNRWA. The United States is the largest funder to UNRWA, and this is very significant. I mean, the other side of the coin is that the United States has been the greatest supporter of the institutions. So one has to look at both sides. And the United States has been asking for reform of UNRWA. UNRWA operates in more or less the same way since it was set up. And it needs, basically the money is not enough. And the United States has been calling for more contributions from Arab countries, mainly the Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar. But about the cut does not really affect the Palestinian Authority as much as it affects countries like Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, who are official hosts of Palestinian refugees with UNRWA field offices there. And in Syria, of course, UNRWA has been playing a much larger role. But going back to the broader regional issue and the role of the United States and its allies in the region, meaning Jordan, Egypt, and the Gulf countries and some countries in North Africa, are in a way part of the peace camp of the region. They are the ones who are working for a peaceful solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict based on a two-state solution. Whereas there is another camp, which is the camp that rejects any kind of deal, which includes Iran, the Syrian regime, Hezbollah, and Hamas. So there is that division, and the United States is working with one side, but one of these sides, which is Egypt, one of these actors in Egypt, also has a large influence in Hamas.
Okay, Mr. Shehadi, I'm really running out of time.
But there's no doubt that the United States is on the peace side.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Shehadi, I'm running out of time. Very quickly, Professor Mousavi, please address what Mr. Shehadi just mentioned about Iran, for instance, not wanting a peace deal. 30 seconds, if you can, please.
I don't think there is a so-called peace camp. I mean, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip have been occupied for over 50 years now, so 5 decades. If there was a so-called peace camp with an actual will to create a Palestinian state, that we would have seen this already. What do we have today instead? We have a crushed, devastated people under occupation, which don't even have the right to vote. So I think with the death of the two-state solution, essentially what we should be talking about is a one-state solution. Yes, there is a solution, and the solution is democracy. Every person has to have one vote, and that would be a one-state solution, essentially.
We have to leave it there. Many thanks to our guests, Professor Hamed Mousavi from the University of Tehran, Nadim Shehadi from the Fletcher School at Tufts University, and Professor Doga Eralp from the School of International Service at the American University. And my first point here, if you read President Trump's tweet at the beginning of this year, you'll see his logic being like this. Now, despite getting U.S. aid for a long time, he thinks Palestinians don't want to negotiate a peace treaty with Israel. The U.S., he thinks, by recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, has made the negotiations easy by taking this toughest issue off the table, which means he thinks he has done the Palestinians a favor by giving Jerusalem to the Israelis. Now, the Palestinians are not happy about the decision and don't want to talk peace, so according to President Trump, they don't deserve any further funding. So no wonder the Palestinians are calling this a blackmail. It can be said President Trump's policy has been indeed disruptive. Whether it can be constructive, we really have to wait and see. As a result, not only Palestinian refugees are suffering for the moment, the Palestinians have been so angered that they have stopped seeing the U.S. as a mediator. It's a big question mark what Vice President Mike Pence could expect to achieve during his trip to the region this time. You're watching The Point. I'll be back right after this short break. Stay with me. Blockchain has become a hot topic on the social media in China, and the country's stock market has also been buzzing over any companies related to this new technology. But what exactly is blockchain? What does it mean to our day-to-day life? Will it subvert some of the traditional industries as has been predicted? I'm happy to be joined from New York by Professor Henry Cao, Professor of Finance and Chair of the Finance Department at the Chongqing Graduate School of Business, and here in Beijing by Patrick Dai, co-founder of the Quantum Foundation, a Singapore-based open platform, also a member of the Blockchain Expert Committee of the Chinese Institute of Electronics. Professor, welcome to the show. Professor Cao, for those of us who aren't technically minded, would you elaborate on the concept of blockchain in a simple way?
There are two key components of the blockchain technology. The first is distributive ledger technology. That is, all the transactions on the blockchain are sent to everyone on the chain. The second is decentralized organization. So everybody in the community contributes to the chain. So that's different from the traditional way of recording, of keeping records. A more accurate word for blockchain should be distributive ledger technology. In fact, it's not new. In the ancient China, when people get married, they don't go to authority. They have a big banquet, invite everyone in the village to participate. That's kind of just like the blockchain technology. In addition, you don't really need blockchain to have distributive ledger technology. There are other ways of doing the same thing. For example, hash graph, directed acyclic graph.
I see. Well, indeed, that makes it a lot easier to understand. Patrick, what kind of impact will this new concept bring to our society? Can you give us some examples of its applications in a real economy?
Yes, I think the blockchain technology have the potential to become the trusted infrastructure for our society. It changes the ways we are doing business. It changes from a centralized business based on the information asymmetry to the decentralized business based on the symmetry information. And also, for example, you can use blockchain on supply chain to monetize the Internet of Things, and also to build a more efficient payment solution for all the banking system.
Right. One of the things that everybody is talking about nowadays is cryptocurrencies. And Professor Cao, you're an expert in the field. Will the prosperity of blockchain challenge some of the world's traditional financial institutions and industries?
Absolutely. So the financial industry is built on trust. In the past, we rely on reputation of famous institutions like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan to do transactions. But now we can use the distributive ledger technology to build trust for all involved. So Wall Street, if Wall Street cannot rely on trust to generate business, it will decay. And I believe that in the future, the blockchain technology can replace most of the transactions conducted in Wall Street. Anything you can do on Wall Street in the future can also be conducted on the blockchain. So I view this as a future for the financial industry.
Well, it is a nice idea, but however, if you ask me to go to a bank, which I know very well, which has been there for a long time, or if you ask me to go to a group of people which I do not know, although the level of trust might be higher, it is still difficult for people to switch their mind and really, you know, give and make a different choice. Professor Cao, how do you describe this kind of mentality change
agree.
that people
It takes
need to
time.
have? Right.
Yeah, it takes time. Like 20 years ago, and nobody believed that I'm going to shop on Taobao or on Amazon.com. But now, most people, the young people, they are very happy to shop in Amazon.com or in Taobao. So essentially, it takes for younger people, they grew up with blockchain. For them, this is a new concept. So I think like 20 years from now, nobody's going to talk about blockchain like nobody's talking about internet now, because it will be part of our life. So I think for the older generation, it may take time, but for the younger generation, they're born with it. So this will not be a problem.
Yeah, Patrick, you probably belong to the younger generation. You actually deal with cryptocurrency on a day-to-day basis. Let me ask you this first. Now, China's blockchain-related companies extended their bullish run on Friday as punters brushed aside concerns raised by regulators about the rationality of stock price surges this week. Do you have any concerns behind this blockchain fever?
Yeah, I think right now, for myself, I have some concerns for sure. But personally, I also think it's normal because people are always crazy on the new technology, especially some new technology have the potential to rebuild many industries. So it's a natural process. Like just back to 2000 years, like we have the internet bubble. But also Facebook, Google, all these great internet company, they reborn from the bubble.
Is this fever producing some kind of risk, financial risks for governments, for instance? To your knowledge, what is being done in China by the Chinese government to prevent financial risks associated with blockchain technologies?
The Chinese government, they listed the blockchain technology in the 5 years plan. But also for the cryptocurrency, like it's harder to control. So the Central Bank of China, they released some regulations in that area. It prevented the average user to participate a lot in the cryptocurrency. I think it's good to protecting the people, especially when blockchain super early stage. It's hard for average user to understand.
Professor Cao, what is the picture in other parts of the world, in the United States, for instance? What has been the regulation towards blockchain, towards cryptocurrency?
Regulation is very important because we noticed that the Bitcoin has been used for people to do tax evasion, to do money laundering. There's some intrinsic problems of Bitcoin. It's very slow, can only do 6 to 7 transactions in a second, and that needs to be improved. So essentially, in the future, I believe that most of the cryptocurrency will die. Maybe like 1 to 2 major currencies will survive, and then the government has to impose some regulations on this technology. For example, you really have to real identity on the blockchain. You have like real identity coins on the blockchain, and in the future, the coins has to have real applications. Right now, most of the cryptocurrency compete with gold. They have no real applications except the storage of money. But the value of storage of money is limited. From my estimations, maybe about $1 trillion. Right now, the cryptocurrencies, the total value is already $500 billion. So essentially, the upside will be limited for the whole of the cryptocurrency. In the future, we will have to find real applications that can solve real problems in the real world. And that will be the future for the blockchain technology. And the government can play a very important role to guide the technology to the right direction.
Professor Cao, still, we can see, as I said, a rush towards this emerging technology, but on the other hand, we have just witnessed a dramatic drop in the value of Bitcoin this week, and the market value is reported to have evaporated by more than $30 billion within 24 hours. How do you look at this? What do you think caused this massive drop in Bitcoin's value?
It's part of that because of the tightening regulation. This is new technology, and there's lots of uncertainty. It takes time for people to have trust in the new technology. So this kind of volatility is not surprising, given the short history of this new technology. So in the long run, when it stabilizes, for example, if the total value of the cryptocurrency has stabilized at about $1 trillion, we'll see this volatility is going to decline. Because many people who made lots of money, when they see the price drops, they get scared, they want to take profits. So I think essentially it's basically uncertainty regarding to the new technology.
Patrick, not only has the value of Bitcoin suffered a huge loss, but other digital currencies or cryptocurrencies such as Ethereum and Ripple, I'm still trying to learn these names, but they also keep falling. How do you look at the future of cryptocurrencies as countries across the world have started putting more attention, at least, if not restrictions, on the trends?
Yeah, I think right now more and more governments they are already like aware of this kind of new cryptocurrency. It's harder to control because it's a peer-to-peer network. Yeah, but also in some countries like in Japan, they started giving license to the exchange platform, and in Europe they also recognize it's a currency. So, but it depends on the regulation, and it's needed the international collaboration and cooperation. So we can give a right, like the sandbox for the blockchain startups, or we can like lead a right way for all the blockchain technology.
Again, to Patrick, what do you think going forward would be the biggest challenge for this new technology?
For this new technology, technically speaking, it's still in super early stage, and also we need a regulation, and also we need more education to all the average user. Yeah, it may take another 5 to 10 years until we have a massive adoption of a consumer-based application based on blockchain.
Yeah, very briefly, Professor Cao, what is your take on this question? Going forward, what is the biggest hurdle for industry insiders and scientists to overcome?
So like Bitcoin is the tip of the iceberg of what blockchain technology can bring to us. In the future, we need to make the blockchain technology to be have lower cost, to be faster, to have much bigger scale, and it can solve problems in the real industry. For example, cross-border transactions, the small and the medium financing for companies, and the supply chain finance regarding the trust and fake goods. So in the future, there could be other kind of applications we don't even comprehend now. So in the future, basically we have to apply the big blockchain technology to solve real problems. The kind of air coin like Bitcoin,
right,
the upside is limited.
Okay, I see your point. Thank you very much to our two guests, Professor Henry Cao from Chung Keung Graduate School of Business and Patrick Dai, co-founder of Quantum Foundation. And we have to leave it there. That's it for this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. Thank you very much for watching. Follow me on Facebook or Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the application called CGTN to watch the show on your mobile devices. You've got The Point.